Today we're going to be talking about Troll Hunter and I Kill Giants. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't. Either way, I'm going to be spoiling the shit out of them, so if you care about spoilers, go and watch these movies before you watch this video. Although the truth is, now that I think about it, Troll Hunter is not really a movie you can spoil. It's a movie about a troll hunter. And I Kill Giants, it's got a bit of a twist ending, but, whatever. Fuck it. I'm not that into it. Wasn't that great a movie. So this is the poster for Troll Hunter. It's got a pretty great tagline. That's not a tagline. A quote. Quote from a critic. Pretty damn spectacular. I mean, that's a well-chosen word, spectacular. This movie is very focused on the spectacle. It makes very, very good strategic use of CGI. Like CGI, especially when it's in like a low-budget movie, doesn't look very convincing, right? It's not very realistic. So these movies really benefit from like shaky cameras, found footage style shooting. Basically, the less you see of the CGI, the more convincing it is. So yeah. Troll Hunter has actually aged very well as a result of that. It's held up over 10 years. It still looks pretty good. So we tend to associate films like Troll Hunter, like spectacle visual films, with simplicity and like a lack of complexity, a lack of deep meaning. You know, we tend to say of these movies that they're superficial. They're all appearance. There's no depth to them. These are kind of cliched phrases about spectacle-oriented films, but this is a misconception, like through and through. The superficiality of Troll Hunter really helps it maintain a layer of ambiguity between the audience and the film. We never really know what's going on. Especially in the beginning of the film, we really don't have a clear idea of what's happening. There's lots going on in Troll Hunter that you can analyze and you can apply to modern culture and the modern kind of human experience. This is a very expressive movie. Just look at some of these scenes, like this troll with 3 heads. It's dehumanizing the body. That's not the right word. It's estranging the human body. It's making it grotesque, like it's recognizable as human-ish, but it's obviously not human, which has this kind of like body horror built into it. And you've got scenes like this, where you've got like the individual against the apocalyptic, gigantic monster. Like this could be a stand-in for countless like well-recognized high literary stories like Moby Dick, where it's, man against nature. Scale is a big part of the conflict between the protagonist and the universe. And the scale of the figures in these shots also brings us back to our childhood when we were small and everything seemed big. Maybe it brings us back to experiences of being bullied in elementary school or high school. A lot of people have a relationship to the experience of feeling smaller than the thing that you're, managing or the thing that's threatening you. It's a pretty universal experience, so a film that represents it so dramatically and so interestingly is not simple. There's a lot you can say about this movie. By the way, I know this shirt makes it look like I'm not wearing a shirt and have very strange floral pattern tattoos. I'm not sure how that's showing up on camera, but yeah, I'm not shirtless. I have a shirt on. So rewatching this final scene of Troll Hunter to make this movie, I was reminded of the first few episodes of the anime Attack on Titan. I mean, superficially, it's very similar to the final scene of Troll Hunter. The anime is obsessed with scale. It's all about little people fighting giant monsters, the kind of horror of scale, the horror of being small. Also, this ties into the last video we did on Brian McCarthy. Paul McCarthy is his name. I can never get it right. Where we talked about how Aqua Teen and McCarthy represent the body as food, right? Like in Attack on Titan, bodies are food constantly. Like that's the threat in Attack on Titan, that you will be eaten. Now, I said that when we're young, we feel small compared to the world at large. It's, we're in a world that's built for adults and we're tiny, so everything doesn't fit us. There's this scale problem as a child. This persists into adult life. This doesn't go away. It's just the things that are bigger than us change. Like when we're a child, a door is this looming, terrifying thing. But as an adult, you just open a door and walk through it. But as an adult, there are new looming and terrifying things like hurricanes and tsunamis and tornadoes and war and bombs and climate change and debt and retirement and losing your job or not getting a promotion. These things are larger than us. They loom over us the same way that everyday items loomed over us as a child. So, shows like Attack on Titan or movies like Troll Hunter help us manage that fear, because the characters in Attack on Titan and the Troll Hunter in the Troll Hunter is not afraid of something that's bigger than him, the Troll Hunter. So, the characters in Attack on Titan and the Troll Hunter in the Troll Hunter, these people aren't afraid of things that are bigger than them. The whole thing that makes them interesting characters is that they manage scale better than you or I would. So, like with powerlifters, we can borrow from Attack on Titan's protagonists or the Troll Hunter. We can take a little bit of their strength to maybe make us manage scale and manage the things that are larger than us a little bit better. Now, the flip side of this fantasy of managing scale better is the fantasy of being bigger, of being gigantic. You see this in modern films like The Pacific Rim, or is it just Pacific Rim? Or in, like, from my childhood, you know, you've got like Power Rangers and Voltron, which is the same fantasy, right? It's that you're big enough to fight monsters or a hurricane.
There are things you can't fight, acts of God. You see a hurricane coming, you have to get out of the way. But when you're in a Jaeger, suddenly you can fight the hurricane. You can win.
So this brings us to I Kill Giants, and just another reminder, I'm going to spoil this movie. It actually does have not a twist ending, but it has a big reveal at the ending. Again, I think it's kind of lame. I think it undermines a lot of what makes the movie interesting. But don't take my word for it. If you really care about not having movies spoiled for you, go watch I Kill Giants. It's not a bad movie. I enjoyed watching it, so you won't be wasting your time, at least if you have tastes that are similar to mine. So all in all, it's a more cerebral movie. It's more focused on characters and emotional arcs and psychological drama than Troll Hunter, which basically has none of that. So unlike Troll Hunter, I Kill Giants does not live on the level of the surface. Its appearances are misleading intentionally. We see giants and monsters throughout this movie, but they're not real. The movie is very explicit about that. They are the fantasies of a traumatized little girl. I Kill Giants is working along the same lines as Attack on Titan or Troll Hunter. The fantasy is that we can manage things that are bigger than us.
You can't have her! You can't have her, you hear me? You will not hurt my mother!
But that fantasy is undermined by I Kill Giants. That's not the moral of the story. The last giant that the little girl kills tells her that he's not coming to kill her mother.
She's going to live!
Little warrior, you fought with honor, but I did not come for her.
Right, I should give you some background. This little girl's mother is dying on the second floor of her house. So she has moved into the basement of her house and has engaged in a quest to start slaying all the giants in her town. The assumption is that the giants are coming to kill her mother. The giants are a stand-in for whatever's killing her mother. I'm guessing it's cancer, but I don't remember if it's actually made explicit.
I can't save her.
So the little girl thinks she can save her mother, and in the end she learns that she can't, and she accepts the death of her mother, then her mother dies, and the story ends. So the giants are a manifestation of her fear, of her grief, of her preemptive grief, I guess you could say. The truth of the film is that she is afraid of her mother dying. The truth is very mundane, which leads us to believe that it's real. right? There's these flights of fantasy where these ridiculous, superficial, virtual, imagined events take place. And then there's these very real, somber moments. And the film is like hitting us over the head. Like it wants us to think that the giants are a fantasy and the death of the mother is real. Like, just look at how these things are shot. The giant scenes are all action scenes. They're all overtly superficial. The CGI, unlike the CGI in Troll Hunter, is right front and center. We see giants for long periods of time, and they look like garbage. And I think it was intentional. I think they wanted the giants to seem imagined. They wanted them to seem like comic book characters, which is where this movie comes from. It was started as a comic. So the giants, to use a Platonic term, are a shadow of the girl's inner world. The truth is inside of her, and the world, as she sees it, is a lie. This is a classic privileging of the inner being over the outer body. It's a distinction between seeming, the giants seem, and being, the death of the mother is. It doesn't seem. You can think about it like a kind of decoding. Like there's a cipher that seems one way, seems confusing and meaningless. And then with the right rubric, you can read that cipher, decode it, and learn the truth. We should be very skeptical of this approach to truth-telling. The truth is, I'm being a little bit hard on I Kill Giants. I enjoyed the movie right up until the end, because it does maintain a kind of ambiguity right up until the final climactic battle. I mean, you start to get hints of it earlier, such as in this scene.
A giant comes to a place and destroys everything in its path. A giant takes everything from you.
Are you afraid of giants?
No.
But for the most part, the beginning 2 acts of the film are pretty ambiguous. This little girl might actually be killing giants. And that would be dope. This movie would be so much better if it was actually about a tiny little girl with an axe that's taller than her running around smoking giants in the woods. That would be sick. Instead, it's a boring coming-of-age story about a little girl losing her mom. There's millions of these stories out there. We don't need another one. So Troll Hunter also follows this path of more ambiguity to less ambiguity. Like in the beginning of the movie, we think that it's a bear, the guy's hunting bears, or that bears or the trolls are bears. I don't know. But obviously by the end of the movie, we know that there are trolls. They're on camera. The guy's killing them. So we learn something in Troll Hunter as well. We move from lack of understanding to understanding. But understanding in Troll Hunter is really not very complete. We have no idea what these trolls are. I mean, it seems like they're just a weird kind of animal. So I don't really mind that Troll Hunter offers us a little bit of understanding into what the trolls are, in that they're not bears, they're trolls. Oh, okay. Like, that's not really over-explaining anything. The narrative doesn't change from internal to external. It stays in the realm of appearances. Attack on Titan actually makes a very similar transition to I Kill Giants. Like, if you're only going to watch 6 episodes of an anime, watch the first 6 episodes of Attack on Titan. There's so much confusion, so much fear, so much just existential dread. No one has any idea what's going on. It's so good. It's so good. But then after episode 6, yeah, it starts to turn into more of an action anime. The main character starts to like learn how to fight the Titans, and like, that's okay, I guess, if you're into like action animes. I kept watching it at that point. It kind of felt like Troll Hunter. But as Attack on Titan progressed, I found that, it really fell into the same trap that I Kill Giants fell into, where it felt the need to explain the Titans. These monsters, the giants and the Titans, don't need to be explained. We get it. This is an old story. It's not that complicated. It's bigger than us. It's scarier than us. Bada boom, bada bing. In fact, offering all the explanation that these shows offer, and I won't get into what the Titans are in Attack on Titan. I gave up. I don't know what they are. I don't want to know. It's completely uninteresting to me. The otherness of these monsters is really a core element of what makes them so scary and what makes them so interesting, is that we have no idea what they are, but especially in Attack on Titan, and this is also true in Troll Hunter, they look very human, like they're humanoid. So they're like us, but they're not us. They're knowable because they're like us, and because the other is like, at least moderately knowable, but they're also totally unknowable. So there's like weird contamination. Before you explain these monsters, they are so cool. So what makes for good exposition then, right? Like it's not an easy thing to do, but it's not impossible. I'm pretty sure I first saw this in Red Letter Media. If we look at the opening scene of New Hope, the first Star Wars movie, we can see the kind of thematic structural layout displayed in a single frame. You pick any frame of these, few seconds of footage, and you've got the entire layout of Star Wars in front of you in one frame. Big, angular, dark, threatening, evil force coming down over the little, soft, angled, light, weak rebellion, right? It's all about the Empire versus the rebellion, and it's also a story of scale, right? It's about little versus big, just like Attack on Titan, or I Kill Giants, or Troll Hunter. So this is good exposition. It's visual. The visual appearance of the story isn't being sacrificed for the content of the story. And what I mean by that is that there's no hierarchy here. The appearance and the inner depth of the story are really the same thing. They're both on the same page. They're representing the same kind of themes. One isn't a lie and the other isn't true. So that's what makes for good storytelling. What makes for bad exposition? Well, a bad exposition is something that pulls you out of the story. It's something that breaks the immersion of the narrative, traditionally. That's what you're taught in film school, anyway. For example, this scene in Afro Samurai. It's like Afro Samurai sits down and orders a lemonade, and the bartender's like, "Hey, Afro, you want some exposition with that lemonade?" And he's like, "Well, not really, but I have a feeling you're going to give it to me anyway." Or maybe that's what I said when I was watching it. This is a one-off in Afro Samurai. I love the show. It's very, very superficial. It's very appearance-oriented. There's not a lot of storytelling. There's not a lot of content. It's very involved in appearances. This is probably the only immersion-breaking instance of exposition in the show. Otherwise, you get the story of Afro Samurai through like flashbacks or like dudes shouting at each other while they're fighting. So yeah, Afro Samurai is not the best example of bad exposition, but that instance of exposition is pretty bad. A better example of bad exposition would probably be this YouTube comment. "Oh my God, it's so bad." Now I know what you're thinking. Iron and Wine. What's the deal, theory creep? But personally, I side with Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, and white girls put me on to weird-ass bands that I wouldn't listen to, like Iron and Wine.
Okay, so in my assessment, this is just my personal opinion, decoding art murders it. You take an organic, whole, interesting piece of art, like a nice poem or a nice song, and then you analyze it to death and you cut it into pieces, and it's just garbage. Just a pile of parts broken down into just meaninglessness. And nothing I've ever seen on the internet is a better example of overanalyzing something than this comment. And for some reason, people fucking love it. It's got like 1,500 likes, like hundreds of replies. I actually printed it out so I could read it to you. It's more than one page long, so I'll probably speed this up or cut it up or something, because I don't hate you guys and I don't want to expose you to all of this. So here we go. Oh, it's a nice song. You should listen to the song. The narrator is the trapeze swinger. The circus is life. The narrator has died recently and he's caught somewhere between heaven and hell. But she can't hear him because she's still alive down on earth. In fact, I think she's sitting in the back row of his funeral service. She's being viewed from heaven's waiting room. So this reading is obliterating ambiguity. It's the ambiguity and the distance between knowing and surfaces that makes a song like this so interesting. We project ourselves into it. Our first love, our last breakup. These are things that we throw into these ambiguous songs, and they make them personally meaningful for us. This story has nothing to do with me. It's all about the person who wrote it. It's all about their interpretation and their reading. It's colonial and it's offensive. Anyway, I'll go on. He died young. He hadn't seen the girl since the summer after high school, but he had never stopped loving her. When she heard the news of his death, a suicide? She bought a plane ticket and flew home for the first time in a while. She wanted to attend his funeral. But anyway, this is garbage criticism, is what this is. It's assuming that a poem or a song or a movie or a film or any subject of criticism is something that we can decode and that there is only one reading of. And just listen to the certainty in the first two sentences of this reading. The narrator is the trapeze swinger. The circus is life. These are certain definitive sentences. There's no question marks here. So overanalyzing a song or a poem or whatever it is you're talking about will kill it. That's my opinion. But it's about more than audience enjoyment and audience immersion. Explaining does more than make movies boring. It also espouses a certain kind of epistemology or a certain kind of truth-telling, where truth is singular and is decoded and is something that, an expert will arrive at through work. And this kind of truth-telling, this epistemology, privileges depth over surface and gets in the way of scenes like the opening of Star Wars or the last scene of Troll Hunter. These scenes don't have to be decoded. Their meaning is apparent in their surface. Just looking at them tells you what's going on. There's no lies. Unlike in I Kill Giants, where appearances of the giants are overtly debunked by the film. This debunking is problematic philosophically because it's embracing the hierarchy of depth over surface. And this privileging is real. Again, let's not be abstract. Let's talk about practical manifestations of the theory that we're talking about. So when you privilege a singular truth, you're also more inclined to privilege a singular authority, such as a monarch or an emperor or a totalitarian dictator. Because truth is singular, it's assumed that the authority, it's assumed that the true authority would also be singular. This is literally how monarchies supported themselves, ethically and philosophically in the Middle Ages. This decoding method of truth-telling also really enables academic gatekeeping, where the true meaning of a work of art is held behind the gates of, the ivory tower, where the intelligentsia are the ones who disperse truth and the anonymous ignorant masses are powerless to do any analyzing or any kind of analytical work of their own. It justifies patriarchy through the association of masculinity with rationality and femininity with intuition and bodily wisdom. That's just a bullshit way to say that men are smarter than women. And finally, this kind of rational supremacy and privileging of rationality and the singularness of rationality, the discreteness of rationality, which is obviously located in European white men, right? This also facilitates imperialism and racism, where you identify savages as being irrational and white people or white men specifically as being rational and therefore in power over them. All of this comes from a singular understanding of truth. If we accept that truth is pluralistic, then none of this singular totalitarian, racist, imperialistic, sexist stuff that we just talked about can happen, says the guy who's not wearing a shirt. So anyway, it might sound like I'm calling this little girl in I Kill Giants a racist and an imperialist, but no, fuck it, I am. No, she's the enemy. She's not an ally. Shame on you, little girl. But anyway, I guess the real lesson here is to filmmakers, and that is watch out for exposition because it will ruin your movies. This lesson has been brought to you by The Theory Creep. I'm The Theory Creep. Thanks for watching. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I am getting hungry.